I was 23, drowning in finals week stress, when my uncle offered me his place for a few days to study in peace. His house sat on the edge of town, where the streetlights gave up and the woods crept in quiet, except for the occasional coyote howl. The neighborhood was all wide yards and boarded up lots, the kind of place where you felt alone but never quite were. I didn't mind. After months in a dorm with paper-thin walls, the silence was a relief. I spent my first night there glued to my laptop, the blue glow of my screen the only light in the upstairs bedroom. Around 11 p.m., I stretched and glanced out the window. That's when I saw him, a figure standing dead still between the trees, facing the house. Too far to make out details, just a shadow taller than the underbrush. My gut said run, but my brain argued it was probably some guy cutting through the lots. I forced myself to laugh it off. The next night, I caught myself checking the window before bed like a reflex. Nothing. I exhaled, chugged my coffee, and cranked through an essay until my eyes burned. But at 2 a.m., a prickle on my neck made me look up. There he was again, closer now. Close enough to see the way his arms hung limp at his sides, the unnatural straightness of his posture. No shuffling, no glancing around, just fixed on the house. My fingers froze mid-keystroke. The rationalizations came slower this time. Maybe he's homeless. Maybe he's high. But the way the moonlight caught his face, pale, waxy, like something peeled out of a medical diagram, sent me yanking the curtains shut. I didn't sleep. Just sat there clutching my phone, thumb hovering over 911. Until sunrise painted the room in weak yellow light. By the third night, I was a wreck. I'd moved my laptop to the living room downstairs, away from that damn window, but every creak of the house made my pulse spike. Around 3 a.m., I caved and peeked through the blinds, just to prove to myself it was nothing. That's when I saw him at the edge of the yard, maybe 15 feet from the porch. Same stiff stance, same hollow stare, but now his head was tilted up, locked onto the exact window where I usually sat. His clothes were wrong too, a heavy coat in June, the fabric sagging like it was meant for someone bigger. My breath fogged the glass as I ducked down, knees cracking against the floor. That's when it hit me, he wasn't just watching the house. He was learning it. Learning me. The security cameras were my uncle's idea. Probably kids messing around, he'd said when I called, but his voice went tight when I described the coat. The footage made my stomach drop. Every night, like clockwork, 2:17 a.m., the figure would step out from the tree line. No walking, no searching, just appearing, already facing the house. He'd stand there, motionless, for exactly 2 hours. Then, at 4:17, he'd vanish backward into the dark. The cops shrugged. No trespassing, no threats. What do you want us to do? I played the clips over and over, zooming in until the pixels blurred. His face was always slightly out of focus, like the camera refused to capture it. But in one frame, I swear his lips were parted. Not smiling, just open, like he'd been whispering something the whole time. I stopped sleeping after that. The house became a maze of locked doors and stacked furniture, chairs wedged under knobs, dressers shoved against windowsills. I carried my uncle's hunting knife in my sweat-slick palm, jumping at every hum of the fridge or scuttle of rats in the walls. The worst part? The routine. By 2 a.m., my body would tense on its own, muscles coiled like I was waiting for a gunshot. And sure enough, he'd be there, closer every night. His outline sharpened in the moonlight, that too-long coat, the way his sleeves dangled past his wrists, fingers curled like broken hooks. Sometimes I'd press my face to the glass, screaming obscenities until my throat burned, just to see if he'd react. He never did, just kept staring, unblinking, as if I wasn't even there, or as if he was waiting for something else to notice me first. The fifth night broke me. I'd barricaded myself in the bathroom, the only room without windows, clutching the knife and a flashlight like some deranged survivalist. But around 3 a.m., a new sound cut through the silence, a slow, wet drag against the side of the house, like something heavy being pulled through gravel. Then another, and another. Footsteps. Not the crisp click of shoes, but the slurred, uneven tread of bare feet on pavement. My stomach turned to ice. The cameras didn't pick it up. The cops, when I called sobbing, heard nothing on the audio. But I felt it, the vibration through the walls, the pause outside the bathroom door, the faint smell of copper seeping under the threshold. When I mustered the courage to flick on the flashlight, the beam caught a single streak on the tile floor. Red. Still sticky. By dawn, the red smear had dried brown, but the smell lingered, metallic and sweet, like old pennies left in the sun. I scrubbed it until my nails cracked, then drove 20 miles to the nearest 24-hour Walmart just to be around people. The fluorescent lights and bored cashiers felt surreal, like I'd slipped into someone else's life. I bought motion sensors, extra locks, and a Bible, which I'm not even religious enough to open, but desperation makes hypocrites of us all. Back at the house, I installed everything with shaking hands, triple-checking the cameras. That's when I noticed it. In last night's footage, at 3:02 a.m., the figure's head twitched toward the bathroom window. Not a turn, a spasm, like a puppet yanked by its strings. The timestamp glitched right after midnight for 3 full minutes, before resetting like nothing happened. My uncle's voicemail that night was grim. "Pack your shit. I'm coming home tomorrow." I wish I'd left then, but pride's a stupid thing. I told myself one more night, just to prove I wasn't crazy. I dragged the mattress into the hallway, barricaded between the fridge and a bookshelf, knife duct taped to my wrist like a bad horror movie gag. The motion sensors chirped at 2:17 a.m. as usual, but this time, the figure didn't stop at the yard. It lurched forward, one jerking step at a time, until its coat brushed the porch railing. The camera feed showed its hands now, palm up, fingers splayed, as if offering something invisible. Then, clear as a struck bell, the doorbell rang. Not the electric chime. The physical bell, the rusted one my uncle hadn't used in years. My blood turned to slush. Because when I checked the live feed, the porch was empty. But the doorbell's rusty hinge was still swaying. I don't remember calling 911. Just the operator's voice, tinny and far away. "Stay on the line, sir." But the words drowned under the next sound, a scratch at the front door. Not knocking, not pounding. Something dragging slowly, deliberately, from the top of the wood to the bottom. Like claws. Or fingernails. The motion sensors screamed as I bolted upstairs, my socks slipping on the steps. Through the bathroom window, the one room I swore I'd never use again, I saw him. Not in the yard. Not on the porch. Right beneath the sill, his coat pooling in the dirt, his face tilted up. Moonlight caught his eyes for the first time, pale, glassy, lidless. His mouth hung open wider than before, jaw unhinged like a snake's, and inside, nothing. No teeth. No tongue. Just a hole, black and bottomless. The scratching stopped. Then, a wet thud against the door. Once. Twice. Like a head being knocked against wood. When the cops finally came, they found me in the attic, half-conscious from hyperventilating, the knife still taped to my wrist. The front door was pristine. No scratches, no dents. No footprints in the dew-heavy grass. But the younger officer's flashlight caught something as they walked me out. A patch of dirt under the bathroom window, churned up like something had been digging. And there, half buried, was a strip of fabric. Faded plaid, stiff with dried blood. My uncle went white when he saw it. Turns out, the previous owner's son had vanished in '98, last seen wearing a flannel shirt. The cops called it a sick coincidence. But I knew better. Because as they drove me away, I glanced back at the house. And in the upstairs window, just for a second, I saw a shadow. Tall. Still. Watching me leave. I crashed at my parents' place for a month, jumping at every creek in their suburban split level. The cops closed the case. No evidence. No crime. My uncle sold the house to some out-of-state investors without even listing it. But the dreams didn't stop. Every night at 2:17 a.m., a jolt awake, my mouth tasting like wet soil, my ears ringing with that same doorbell chime. I started checking my phone obsessively, waiting for the cameras to pick up movement. Then, last Tuesday, the notification popped up. Motion detected. Backyard. The live feed showed nothing but empty grass. But when I zoomed in, I saw it, a single footprint, deep and fresh, pressed into the dirt below my bedroom window. Not from boots. Bare toes, long and gnarled, with something dark caked under the nails. The timestamp? 2:17 a.m. exactly. The kicker? My parents don't have motion sensors. I moved across the country last week. Changed my number. Burned the coat I wore that first night. But some things don't leave. Like the voicemail from an unknown number last night. Just 3 seconds of ragged breathing, then a whisper, "You forgot the knife." And the voicemail photo that came with it. A grainy, black and white still of my uncle's porch. Empty. Except for the hunting knife I'd left behind, stabbed deep into the welcome mat. Blade first. Handle up. Like an invitation. My name is Daniel, and up until last month, I was just a regular 26-year-old guy living in a cheap but decent apartment complex on the outskirts of the city. I worked a boring office job, spent my weekends binging shows, and never thought twice about my safety until the gate thing started happening. See, there's this side entrance near the dumpsters that leads to a narrow hallway where all the electric meters are locked behind metal panels. I use that gate sometimes to take out the trash, and I always locked it behind me. But then, one morning in early October, I noticed it was wide open. I figured maybe maintenance had been there, so I locked it again. The next day, open. And the day after that. That's when the first chill crawled up my spine. Then came the morning I'll never forget. I was rushing to work, keys in hand, when I suddenly felt it, that unmistakable prickle on the back of my neck, like someone was staring right through me. I froze mid-step and slowly turned my head toward the meter hallway. Between the gaps in the metal panels, barely visible in the dim light, I saw them. Eyes. Dark, unblinking, locked onto me. My breath hitched. I took a step closer, and in a split second, they were gone. No sound, no movement, just empty space where they'd been. My heart was slamming against my ribs as I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. I told myself it was a trick of the light. But deep down, I knew. Someone had been watching me, and they didn't want to be seen. I reported it to the building manager that same day, but he just shrugged and said, "Probably just a homeless guy looking for shade." Those meter closets get warm at night. The cops were even worse, took my statement like they were ticking off a checklist, then wrapped it up with, "We'll patrol the area, but unless he actually tries to break in, there's not much we can do." I wanted to scream. He was right there, watching me. But without proof, I was just another paranoid tenant. That night, I triple-checked my locks and tried to sleep, but every creak of the building sent me bolt upright in bed. Around 3 a.m., I heard it, a whisper. Not from outside my window, but from inside the wall beside my kitchen. A low, rhythmic murmur, like someone was reciting something just on the other side of the drywall. I pressed my ear against the wall, my pulse roaring in my ears. The whispering stopped, then breathing. Slow, deliberate, like whoever it was had heard me too and was holding still. I recoiled so fast I knocked over a chair. For a full minute, I just stood there, gripping my phone, debating whether to call 911. But what would I say? There's breathing in my walls? They'd think I was insane. At dawn, I finally mustered the courage to check the meter hallway in daylight. That's when I found it. A nest of old blankets wedged between the meters and the wall, empty soda cans, a half-eaten bag of chips. And then the photos. Dozens of them, printed on cheap drugstore paper, all of me. Eating at my desk, sleeping on the couch, standing at the window, oblivious. The worst one? A close-up of my face, taken from outside my bedroom window. He'd been inches away from me while I slept. The police actually showed up this time, 2 officers who looked more annoyed than concerned. They poked around the meter closet, took the photos as evidence, and asked me if I had any enemies or exes with a grudge. Like I'd somehow missed a stalker lurking in my own life. One of them even joked, "At least you're photogenic," before leaving me with a case number and zero reassurance. That night, I didn't sleep. I dragged my dresser in front of the bedroom door and sat against the wall with a kitchen knife in my lap, straining to hear anything over the hum of the fridge. Around 2 a.m., a new sound cut through the silence, scratching. Not at the door or window, but from inside the vents. Slow, deliberate drags of metal on metal, like someone was testing how far the sound would travel. I realized then he wasn't just watching. He was learning. By morning, I was a ghost of myself, pale, shaking, chugging coffee like it could burn the fear out of me. I called out of work and went straight to the hardware store, buying motion sensors, window alarms, and a deadbolt so heavy the cashier raised an eyebrow. "Break up?" he asked. I almost laughed. If only it were that simple. Back home, I boarded up every window with plywood, my hands splintered and sweating. I deleted all my social media, even my LinkedIn. No digital footprints, no way to find me. But as I taped the last blackout curtain over the glass, a thought slithered in. What if he doesn't need the internet? What if he's still here? That's when I noticed it, a single soda can, placed neatly on my kitchen counter. Peach flavored. My favorite. It hadn't been there when I left. The soda can broke me. I stood there staring at it, my hands trembling so badly I dropped my keys. That's when I noticed something else, the faint smell of cigarette smoke clinging to the air. I don't smoke. Never have. The scent was coming from the bathroom vent. I approached slowly, every muscle tense, and that's when I saw them. Fresh cigarette ashes in the sink. My blood ran cold. He hadn't just been in my apartment. He'd been comfortable enough to smoke here while I was gone. I checked every closet, under the bed, even inside the damn cabinets like some terrified kid checking for monsters. Nothing. Just that lingering smell and the awful knowledge that my locks meant nothing to him. That night, I did something desperate. I set up my laptop to record while I slept, not that I could actually sleep. I positioned it to face the bedroom door and the window, then pretended to doze off. Every rustle of fabric, every creak of the building made my pulse spike. Around 3:17 a.m., the motion detector in the hallway beeped softly. My eyes flew open. On the laptop screen, the bedroom doorknob was turning slowly, so slowly. Then it stopped. For 10 agonizing minutes, nothing. Just as I started to think I'd imagined it, a shadow moved across the floor, someone crouching below the camera's view. The feed cut to static. When it came back, there was a note taped to my door. "You're interesting when you're scared." I didn't sleep for 3 days after that. The note disappeared by morning, like it had never been there, but I'd taken a photo of it first. When I showed it to the police, they finally took me seriously. A detective came to dust for prints, but all he found were smudges. "Were gloves," he muttered. That's when I noticed something they'd missed, tiny scratches around the bathroom vent cover. When I pulled it off, my stomach dropped. The duct was spotless, too clean. No dust, no cobwebs. Someone had been using it regularly. I shoved the cover back on with shaking hands and called a locksmith to install steel reinforcement plates on every door. But as the guy worked, he frowned at my bedroom door frame. "Weird," he said. "These scratches. Looks like someone's been jimmying this lock for weeks." The final straw came on a rainy Thursday. I was microwaving dinner when the power went out, just my unit. Complete darkness. Then the whispering started again, but this time it came from multiple directions at once. One voice by the fridge, another near the boarded-up window. I froze, gripping my phone, when I heard the worst sound yet, knocking from inside the bedroom closet. 3 slow raps, the same pattern I always used when visiting friends. My blood turned ice. That's when I realized he wasn't just watching. He'd been imitating me, learning my routines, my mannerisms. The knocking came again, louder this time, followed by a muffled chuckle that didn't sound human at all. I ran for the door and didn't stop running until I was at the police station. I never went back to that apartment. The cops escorted me to collect my things the next day, and even with 3 officers present, the air felt wrong, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. They found nothing, of course. No fingerprints, no hidden cameras, no signs of forced entry. Just those damn scratches on the doorframe and the unsettlingly clean vent ducts. As I packed my last box, one of the officers nudged a loose floorboard with his boot. Beneath it was a single Polaroid I hadn't placed there. Me, taken that morning, asleep on the police station waiting room chairs. The timestamp showed 4:17 a.m., 3 hours after I'd fled the apartment. The officer palmed it quickly, but not before I saw the writing on the back. "You can't run from someone who's already inside." That was 6 months ago. I live in a different state now, under a name not even my parents know. Still, sometimes when I'm half asleep, I'll catch a whiff of cigarette smoke, or hear 3 soft knocks from inside my closet. The police closed the case as unfounded, but the detective calls me every few weeks, not for updates, just to check if I'm still alive. Last month, he texted me a photo of my old apartment building. The new tenant had complained about noises in the walls. When maintenance checked, they found the vents spotless. No dust, no cobwebs, just a single peach-flavored soda can, still cold. My name's Jason, and up until last month, I thought my biggest problem was my dead-end office job. I'm 28, live alone in a ground-floor apartment in this quiet, kinda run-down complex on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine, or at least, it felt like it was. Things started small. I'd come home from work and notice the toilet lid was up, even though I always put it down. The towel in the bathroom would be folded wrong, like someone had used it and tried to neat it back up. The TV remote moved to the left side of the couch when I know I left it on the right. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I was just tired, distracted. But then, one night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of wind rattling the blinds and realized my kitchen window was wide open. I always locked it before bed. Always thought that's when I bought the camera. A tiny, motion-activated thing, hidden in a fake smoke detector in the hallway. I set it up, double-checked every lock, and tried to sleep. But that night, I jolted awake with this icy, clawing feeling in my chest, like the air itself was pressing down on me. Someone was inside. I didn't hear footsteps, didn't see a shadow, but I knew. The next morning, I pulled up the footage. My stomach dropped when I saw the timestamp, 3:42 a.m. A man, tall, thin, wearing a dark hoodie, slid through the kitchen window like he'd done it 100 times before. He moved slow, deliberate, pausing in the living room like he was listening. Then he walked straight to my bedroom door and just stood there, staring at it for 4 minutes. Not touching, not stealing, just watching. Then he turned and left the same way he came. I changed every lock the next day, window latches, deadbolts, even the flimsy sliding bolt on the bathroom door. I told myself it was enough. But 3 nights later, I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The apartment was silent, but something was wrong. I forced myself to check the bathroom first, and there it was. The window was open just a crack, barely enough to fit a hand through. And on the tile floor, right below it, were smudged, grimy handprints, fingers splayed like someone had braced themselves to climb in. My breath came in short, panicked bursts. He'd been inside again. And this time, he'd left proof. After that, I stopped sleeping in my bed. I dragged a blanket to the couch and kept a kitchen knife under the pillow. My fingers curled around the handle until my knuckles ached. Every creak of the building settling, every rustle of wind outside, sent my pulse skyrocketing. I called in sick to work for 3 days straight, too afraid to leave the apartment unattended. What if he came back while I was gone? What if he decided to stay? The worst part? I still didn't know why. He wasn't stealing, wasn't vandalizing, just returning. Like he was checking on me. Like I was part of some twisted routine. By the 5th night, I was running on maybe 2 hours of broken sleep total. My eyes burned from staring at the ceiling, straining to hear any sound over the blood rushing in my ears. Around 2 a.m., I finally dozed off, only to snap awake to the unmistakable click of my front door lock turning. Not the window this time. The door. My entire body went rigid. The knife handle dug into my palm as I watched the doorknob twist slowly, then stop. A pause. Then it jiggled again, harder this time, like whoever was out there was testing the resistance. The deadbolt held, but my breath didn't. I wanted to scream, to charge at the door, but my legs were lead. Then, from the other side, came the softest exhale, a sigh of frustration, followed by footsteps retreating down the hallway. The next morning, I found scratches around the lock, fresh and deep. That's when I called the police. The officer who came barely hid his skepticism as I showed him the footage, the handprints, the marks on the door. "You sure you didn't just forget locking up?" he asked, like I was some paranoid insomniac. He filed a report but offered no patrols, no real help. I begged my landlord for a security system, but he shrugged it off as teenagers messing around. That night, I barricaded the door with a chair and slept with all the lights on. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the camera. The footage showed the hooded figure standing in my hallway again, but this time, his face was turned directly toward the hidden lens. Like he knew it was there. Like he wanted me to see him. The morning after the camera alert, I packed a duffel bag and called my friend Jake, voice shaking as I asked if I could crash at his place. "Dude, you sound like hell," he said, and I almost laughed, because yeah, I felt like hell. My reflection looked like a stranger, bloodshot eyes, stubble gone patchy from days without proper sleep. As I rushed to throw clothes into the bag, my hands kept slipping on the zipper. That's when I noticed it, a faint smell clinging to my bedsheets. Cigarettes and something else, something sour. My stomach lurched. He'd been in here. Close enough to leave his scent on my pillow. I tore the sheets off, my skin crawling, and bolted for the door without looking back. Jake's couch was a relief for exactly 1 night. On the second evening, as we sat watching TV, my phone lit up with another motion alert. The camera feed showed my empty apartment until the hooded figure stepped into frame at 3:42 a.m. again. He walked straight to my abandoned bed, ran a gloved hand over the crumpled sheets, then turned and stared into the camera for a full minute. My throat closed up. He wasn't just checking the apartment anymore. He was looking for me. Jake grabbed my shoulder. "You're white as a sheet, man." And that's when I broke down, spilling everything. To his credit, he didn't laugh. "We're calling the cops again tomorrow," he said. "And you're not going back there." But I knew it wouldn't matter. The locks didn't stop him. The camera didn't stop him. Distance sure as hell wouldn't either. 2 days later, the police finally agreed to patrol my apartment after I showed them the new footage. They found nothing, no forced entry, no fingerprints, just that same eerie nothingness that made me question my sanity. But then the cops' radio crackled, a report of a break-in 2 blocks away. Same MO, kitchen window, nothing stolen, just muddy footprints leading to the bedroom. My blood ran cold. It was him. He'd moved on. The officer gave me a wary look and said, "Stay vigilant," like I hadn't been living in a state of pure terror for weeks. That night, back at Jake's, I couldn't shake the guilt. Had I just passed this nightmare to someone else? I pulled up the local news on my phone, searching for any updates, when a headline made my breath hitch. Local man found dead in apparent suicide. Police investigate possible break-in prior to death. The address was 3 streets over from mine. The article didn't say much, but I knew. He had done something to that guy. The next morning, I drove to the dead man's apartment complex. I don't know what I expected to find, answers, maybe, or just proof I wasn't losing it. Yellow police tape flapped in the breeze, but the real horror was the kitchen window, pried open, just like mine. A neighbor smoking on her porch eyed me nervously. "You knew him?" she asked. I shook my head. "You're lucky," she muttered. "That poor guy. He kept saying someone was watching him sleep. Cops thought he was crazy." Her words hit me like a punch. This wasn't just about me. This was a pattern. I called the detective from my case, voice frantic, but he cut me off. "We're looking into it. Don't interfere." That's when I realized nobody was coming to save me. If I wanted this to end, I'd have to do it myself. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't run forever. I drove back to my apartment, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The place felt different now, not just empty, but tainted. I set up my laptop to stream the camera feed live to Jake's phone, just in case. Then I waited. The knife was back in my hand, but this time, I also had a baseball bat leaning against the couch. I left the kitchen window unlocked. Let him come. Around 3:30 a.m., right on schedule, the camera alert chimed softly on my phone. The feed showed the hooded figure slipping inside, moving with that same eerie calm. But this time, instead of freezing in fear, I stood up. My legs shook, but my voice didn't. "I know you're there," I called out. The footsteps stopped. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then, a dry, rasping laugh from the hallway. The figure stepped into the living room, but he didn't rush at me. He just stood there. Up close, I could see his face under the hood, pale, gaunt, with eyes so dark they looked hollow. "You're interesting," he whispered, tilting his head like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. The casualness of it made my skin crawl. Most people scream. I raised the bat, trying to steady my breath. "What do you want?" He smiled then, slow and awful. "Nothing from you," he said, like it was obvious. "I just like watching." The words hit me like ice water. There was no motive, no reason, just a predator who enjoyed the hunt. I don't remember lunging at him, just the crack of the bat against his shoulder, his snarl of pain as he staggered back. By the time the cops arrived, Jake had called them the second he saw the feed. The guy was gone, vanished into the night like smoke. They found his gloves outside, though, and finally took me seriously. They caught him 2 weeks later, breaking into another apartment across town. Turns out he'd been doing this for years, slipping into homes, watching people sleep, leaving just enough traces to mess with their heads. The cops called it psychological predation. I call it pure evil. I moved out the next day. Still, sometimes, when I wake up at 3 a.m., I swear I hear a faint click from the front door. My therapist says it's PTSD, but part of me wonders if he's out there, smiling in the dark, waiting for someone new to notice the toilet seat left up.